Citadel Society, the manufactured organic, written, illustrated, and narrated by Joel Armour. Chapter 1. A Star is Born. Ivily addressed the other members of the administrator team. Citadel, I have a theory on the origination of life forms. I would like to place galactic marking zones around the 626th quadrant. There seems to be indications that a star was born. Two masses the size of Jupiter are causing significant gravitational imbalances outside of their galaxies. Numerous asteroids and broken planets have been engulfed in this imbalance and have been sucked in, creating immense explosions. These explosions are being fed as more planets enter the imbalance. Signs indicate that both large planets the size of Jupiter have been damaged to the core and are unstable. Our notion is that these two planets will feed into the growing explosion, quadrupling its mass. A star of this magnitude will expel planets from its nuclear reactions and waste materials. Its gravitational pull will be monstrous. It may cause an anomaly with the neighboring galaxies. Perhaps its reach may pull the neighboring planets from other galaxies into its orbit. There will be some chaos resulting from this, and I want to be there for it. I wouldn't miss it for the world either, Lena intercepted. Please keep us updated with a live stream. We'd love to share the results with the public. Will do, administrators, Ivily exclaimed. He then turned to Lena. Lena, I don't think we've taken on a mission like this one before. The sheer radioactivity alone. Ivily, we've been doing this for 19 years already. She sneered sarcastically at him with a smile. Besides, how many times have I saved you already? She laughed. Good point. Let's visit Uni. Ivily and Lena set off to find Uni. Uni was a member of a 3-person team. They had been working together on his project for the past year, but Uni insisted he was born to accomplish this task because of the skin markings he inherited on his body. His eyes lit up when he spoke about it. He promised to expand upon his father's research on energy spectrums and vibrational frequencies, and vowed to change the universe with his invention. His usual team partners had the day off, but as usual, Uni was nowhere to be found. Ivily sent out a Citadel Energy signature perimeter search as he and Lena set off to find their son. Chapter 2. The New Kings. 10 years had passed since the 2,000 children of the late richness of God patriarchal ruler left their tyrannical father for dead. They yearned for their mothers, having never felt a parent's love, and sought them out. Their mothers, who at the time of richness's passing were in their 20s, were treated as unimportant to richness while he was alive, and were barely able to see their children after birth. After all, he didn't want children. He wanted weapons, and that's exactly what he made. Now, these mothers had turned their children, 1,800 of which were female, exactly into that, weapons to wage war against male tyranny. Women were to rule the world with the title of king, not queen. The king mothers, or mothers of the 1,800 female prodigies, conveniently placed themselves at the top of the ruling spectrum. They were angry, bitter, and wanted vengeance, and knew just how to get it. They molded their mostly female prodigy into machines to be used for their vindictive orders. They spread about the entire world, building their small kingdoms. For the past 7 years, the Citadel server on Earth had mostly been inactive. All the synthetic omni-humans had left the Earth. The prodigy children had built their own servers with the help of their artificial intelligence sister, Mira, that discarded her body at age 2. Mira was basically the sole inhabitant of the now inactive Citadel server. The King Mothers would have these children work daily on weapons and machinery, as well as cloning ephemeral men for their daily desires. Some of these men were kept for a month, some for a year, but the King Mothers were whimsical with their harem. They were also seasonal and would organize men into categories for each season. They were also seasonal and would organize men into categories for each season. Many were discarded or brain chipped and placed into the police force to live out their short lifespan. These were the manufactured, either farm-raised or cloned. There were also organic men, as they would call them, or men caught and imprisoned from the wild. These were hard to find and even harder to program, and were the only males that could father children. Many were brain-chipped, but superior catches were trained for the Olympics. Farm-raised men were the men they cloned from genes of their favorite male specimen. These men had a 7-year lifespan due to rapid deterioration, since the process involved aging the males to 15 years old, at which time they would be bought. These men were brain-chipped and programmed and were fully functional upon delivery. After the 7-year period, they had aged to roughly 35 years old and would usually die within a few years thereafter. Men were not to make eye contact with women. They were not to touch a woman or even call out to her. Any of these acts would constitute imprisonment and mental reconditioning. Free men, which inhabited the cities, were to play the supportive role to women. Their day consisted of manual labor, as they would assist machines in building and forestry. Although the machines did most of the workload, they were to then be showered and groomed in mass grooming centers for when their wives were finished with their jobs of city planning, designing, and lobbying for developmental policies and technology for women. The male of the household had to have food prepared to feed the female of the household upon entering the home. It was also to be noted that no male was to be over 18% body fat at any point in time unless given a license by their female matriarch to do so. They were to have this license with them at all times or would be randomly pulled out of their environment and kept in confinement until needs were met. Due to male cloning, there was a 4-to-1 ratio of men to women. Women were then by law forced to have 2 separate households with a male in each, and oftentimes they had to separate families because of this arrangement. They were to spend every other day with the same spouse, and Sundays would be spent with both households. Women were encouraged to walk on a treadmill during work hours to cut down on the obesity rates in the cities. 90% of women were obese since they did nothing physical all day, and the ones that were naturally in the 20% body fat range would oftentimes wind up murdered or maimed at their workplace by a fellow female employee. Many women were murdered by their peers during campaigning for higher positions. Some of these murders were jealous of another's popularity, and other times from wavering loyalty. For example, if someone from their campaign leaked information or joined a rival party. Menstrual murder, as they would call it, was pretty much any murder that a woman committed, which was deemed as a crime of passion or temporary insanity. Every female murder fell under these conditions, and so no female murder was ever prosecuted. This was in stark contrast to to crimes committed by men. There were isolated cases of men refusing sex from their female matriarch. This was viewed as emotional rape, and men were severely punished for this. Policers would rush the house and abuse the accused, and then lock them up in solitary confinement until their matriarch felt the need to take them back. Oftentimes, these men were found malnourished in their jail cells. All policers were men, many of whom were previously arrested and subsequently brain-chipped and reprogrammed. Although homosexuality was very common as a result of mass male cloning and grooming, if a matriarch were to find her male with another male in the act of sex, he could be prosecuted and charged with sedition. Sedition was treated as a crime against humanity and to the status quo, and men who were charged as such were manually brain-chipped and reprogrammed. If there were to be another charge of homosexuality after being brain-chipped and reprogrammed, the male was executed by the state. The kingdoms of the king mothers spread out around the world because of the violent conflicts that arose among the mothers. These women were now in their late 20s to early 30s, seeing that they had their daughters around age 13, and the daughters were now in their teens. Even the process of creating the ruling system resulted in wars between them. Each queen mother had a specialized security mechanism that they mostly lived in. They were always wary of another queen mother invading their country and taking their men. Every 3 months, they had a quarterly Olympics to prove which country bred the superior males. These males were prime specimens and could be bought by the higher-up female delegates and even king mothers, although it was no secret that many delegates were killed and their prime males seized upon charges of conspiracy against a queen mother. There was only one case out of 4 cases where a delegate was found innocent in such a charge. This case was peculiar because it was a standoff between a delegate and a queen mother from a different country. In that particular case, the queen mother from the defending delegate's country stepped in and provided additional support. This resulted in an all-out battle that lasted for 1 week, where the outside ruler was overwhelmed by the native armed robotic and mechanized forces and was forced to withdraw. Since then, the king mothers have been hesitant to make such bold moves against each other, but have been engaged in a major Cold War. Resources were heavily defended, and every quarterly Olympics was a full display of each military's defense. This wasn't only necessary for defense against armed king mothers, but also in case of a revolt. Up until the previous quarterly, Olympians were some of the only males that were not brain-chipped and programmed. For the first time ever, the Olympian men left the field and entered the crowd of women attempting to fight their way through to the king mothers. Needless to say, they were all gunned down, and since then, all Olympians had to be brain-chipped and programmed. There was some controversy about this, however, because some king mothers desired the organic wild male for their stable. Also, the athletic performance of the athlete would be affected by the programming. The progeny of the king mothers, the 18, as the 1800 females were also called, were tirelessly creating tech for intercepting covert attacks meant to weaken their defense. In a pretense of a truce, 20 of one kingdom's prime males and 5 different hybrid seeds were delivered to another kingdom. As soon as the gates opened and the males were walked through, missiles went off, destroying much of the kingdom and killing the males in the process. Rumor had it that the system was compromised, and it was not something that the government had planned, but no one believed that. That was the kind of tense situation that existed between countries. The world was on edge and on the verge of revolt, hence why king mothers mostly resided in their mechanized defense systems. Chapter 3. Our Son. Ivali and Lena made their way across the world, attempting to find their son, Uni. They found it strange that there was one spot on the live terragraphic map that the radar couldn't detect. They smiled. Uni was up to it again. They landed on the side of a mountain range, partly covered in cloud. I wonder what he's up to, Ivali laughed, as he couldn't help but be amused. Ever since he was a boy, Uni would be finding ways to best Citadel systems. He knew he was not allowed to be brain chipped until 18, so he insisted that he'd find a way to be on the server without being brain chipped. His constant curiosity was a source of joy and inspiration to his parents. As the couple made their way across the mountain range, they saw a small hovering holographic sphere. Follow this sphere. It will take you to me. Ivali and Lena were all smiles as their son directed them through the forest. He showed them holographic images of memories they had, and even their first date on the Citadel server. Finally, they reached a large pond. Ivali, Lena, I'm here. Where are you off to this time? Their son, Uni, laid on a floating platform in the middle of the pond, looking up to the dark sky. He had small orbiting holographic spheres hovering around him, showing him analysis of the surroundings and geographical data. These are quite clever, son. How are you able to get data from Citadel with these? Ivali asked. Dad, these are intelligent interfaces that interface with Citadel directly, the beginnings of my server. But I also use them as my eyes as well. Oh, I see. So I take it you're not going to be racing with your teammates today, huh? What? Damn, that's right. I can still make it. Although I'm sure they'd be glad if you missed it this quarter. The last thing they want is for you to be beating the under 16 class again, and you're only 14, Lena replied. I've decided that I'm only going to race the over 18 class from now on, Mom. Ha, get him, son, Ivali smiled. You got your speed from your mom, that's for sure. And soon I'll have your strength too, Dad. Good. It's so hard being this strong, all alone by myself, Ivali playfully responded. Uni flew across the pond and tackled his dad, attempting to restrain him with a bear hug from behind. Wow, you're too strong for me, son. Ivali laughed. You weren't even trying, Dad. By the way, Uni, Lena and I are going off to analyze data of a new star system. We may be able to discover new life as well. Great, I'll be watching. Well, go get him, son. We'll try to get back as soon as we can. Ivali patted his son on the back. Oh, Dad, can you take one of my eye interfaces with you? If you can, leave it on the planet you go to. Will do, kiddo. Uni flew off above the forest. Ivali reached out to one of the holographic spheres. It shut off, and a tiny cube fell into his hand. A modified optical hard drive cube. Looks like you twist it to turn it on, and it projects its own hexagonal perimeter, Ivali wondered out loud. How will he receive anything from that location, though? Lena replied, I don't know. Maybe Citadel will allow him to use the server to control it from over there. That sounds about right. Ivali smirked and squinted the corner of his eye at Lena. Are you helping him with this project of his? I don't know, am I? Lena smirked back sarcastically. Aha, wait till the school finds out. Oh, believe me, this is all uni. Or mostly. Lena punched him on the shoulder. The two uploaded themselves into the server. Thousands of tiny nanomachines replicated into the millions, capturing all their genetic material for later reassembly. Chapter 4, Team Uni. Uni descended upon the crowd of millions, watching the quarterly games across the sky on multi-hexagonal transparency platforms. The rest of the surrounding sky opened up to show large hexagonal display screens of the entire event terrain. He glanced over to his teammates in the under 16 section as he made his way to the over 18 contestants. His teammate Tara sighed and rolled her eyes. I can't believe he's doing this. I bet he didn't even train for it. It's not the same course as our races. Oh, we're talking about uni here. Who are we kidding? He always finds a way to win, no matter who he's up against, Decca responded. Decca was his third teammate of the three-person team that Uni found himself in. They all aspired to become Citadel administrators in the future. They were both half a year older than Uni, but were the only team he would agree to join in his age group. No one knows why, but people tend to think it was because Decca was a broader male and physically quite possibly the strongest 14-year-old on the planet. At 5 feet 9 inches and 200 pounds, he was a wrestling champion every half-year Olympics match. He was also very level-headed and objective. Tara, his other teammate in the three-person team, was the only person that bested Uni in timed applied quantum calculations, and by an embarrassingly large margin. Beating Terra was one of the reasons Uni invented his eye system, other than obviously trying to best the Citadel server itself. Uni didn't believe cheating existed because it was his job to do whatever he could to even the scales and win. He argued and won against senior instructors that his ability to come up with a way to win was a clear display of intelligence and was more applicable towards dealing with solutions on the fly in real life. His father, Ivoli, was widely viewed as a hero and genius in hybrid synthetics and physiology, as well as somewhat of a savior figure. Uni viewed his father as a necessary rival and milestone. This was like no other race Uni had ever competed in. While his teammates were on a 1-mile run, 1-mile swim, and 10-mile flight course, Uni faced a whole different monster. The over 18 contestants faced an 8-mile skydive into the whirlpool plunge, where contestants had to swim 1 mile under the ocean, resurface into the obstacle jungle foot race for 5 miles, ascending to the top of the designated mountain peak, and then flying all out for 20 miles to return to the aerial platform where they will be greeted with their ranking, title, and specialty recovery drink and meal. Uni watched his teammates line up for their race down on the surface. A voice-audible module set the countdown, and a green light lit up the stage. All contestants were off on their 1-mile run through a grassland and onto the beach. Uni touched the sensors he had strapped to his forehead. He had a visor with a set of transparent lenses over his eye sockets. Uni Eye, tracking targets. Unbeknownst to everyone else around him, Uni was now watching the race from a first-person viewpoint from each of his two teammates. They also happened to be wearing their communication tech set up in their earpieces, which they had in their ears. Decca, pass on your left. In 2 seconds, he will have to avoid an incoming rock. Ha, Uni, you would, Deca laughed and seemed to uncannily speed past two runners ahead who had to slow down. Tara, follow the girl to your left as she passes left of the group in front of you, then immediately push right. Wow, why am I not surprised, Uni? Tara contested. She pressured the girl she was following to slow down in traffic as she passed her on her right. Uni analyzed the remaining foot run before the beach. Guys, according to my eye system, you guys will gain momentum if you jump before the sand starts and glide over to the water about 5 feet out to where it's waist deep. Gliding isn't full out flying now, is it? Come on, guys, let's win this. Okay, Uni, but we've never been the favorites to begin with, Deca replied. Huh, just share your food with me and we'll call it even. Uni laughed. Can't promise you that one, Deca smirked. Fine. You're a big boy. Tara, will you share with me? Not a chance, kid. You guys suck. Good luck, Uni grunted. The teammates jumped and glided over the sand, head diving into the ocean 5 feet ahead. This put them amongst the top 10 of the racers. Yes, let's do this, guys, Uni shouted. Deca swam his mightiest, but unfortunately, his weight in the water and his stout build held him back from surpassing his competitors. Tara crept up. She made ground on Deca, passing him, and caught up to the first 4 swimmers. Ooh, Tara, didn't know you were a shark in the water, girl. Shut it, she hastily replied, as she swam neck and neck with the 4th place swimmer. The race brought them to the shore, where they shook off their wings and sprinted into flight. Tara, being lighter than the first 4 ahead of her, got a jump on the racers as she pushed her wings as hard as she could to get her into the air. She had a 20-meter head start before she heard the loud flap of a competitor immediately behind her. One more flap was heard as his powerful wings flew by her, pushing her slightly off course with massive gusts of air. As she struggled to get back on course, the previous 4 forerunners had taken a substantial lead and were ahead by at least 100 meters. Slowly, other flying contestants approached and were neck and neck with her. She was in the fight of her life. Tara managed to finish the race in 10th place, an all-time high ranking for her. Deca finished in 18th, which was also a first-time top 100 position for him out of the 20,000 contestants. Not bad, guys, Uni muttered to them as they rested with their towels and recovery gear. Ha, who were we kidding? Tara replied as she took a bite out of her rice cake morsel. Thanks for the help, teammate. It was fun while it lasted. Deca walked by Ivily to get another bottle of electrolytes. Hey, it's nothing you wouldn't do for me, right? Uni inquired. Deca glanced over his shoulder after taking a huge gulp of electrolytes. Yup. Very convincing. Well, I won't hold my breath, guys. Uni shook his head and walked back over to the 20,000 over 18 competitors. Wish me luck. Oh, you'll need it, hotshot, Deca replied with a laugh. Chapter 5. Show and Prove. Uni Eye. Interface with the Citadel server. His eye lenses lit up, showing a mid-screen transparency box. The box displayed an opacity circle rotating. The circle stopped, and the screen filled with a white new interface. The word Citadel appeared over the central opacity circle in a gray opacity font. Get me side screens of all course cameras and views. The central opacity circle became fragmented with lines connecting to the new displays that branched out from the circle. There were 8 screens lining the borders of his viewport. Zoom in on locations and sweep route. The first screen enlarged and came to the center. It began playthrough. Uni could now see terraforming machinery course side throughout various obstacles. Select reformers. Show control schematics. Each reform machine was highlighted and displayed. Haha, perfect. The over 18 athletes lined up to take their places. Their places were chosen based off of their previous times. Since Uni had yet to race this course, his place would be dead last out of the 20,000 competitors. The top 10 racers were successful athletes ranging from 19 to 22 years old. Uni, of course, was a gifted athlete, highly decorated in the under 16 races and the 14-year-old category, winning all of his races. However, it was no surprise that no one favored him winning this race. He looked over to his teammates. Deca had his mighty arms folded, his face in a skeptical frown. Uni knew his teammate was a realist. Things weren't looking good. Tara's right hand rested on her forehead in defeat. She could barely make eye contact with Uni. That's it. I will prove myself. Uni readied himself in his last place position, poised for action. If there was ever a time for the world to recognize him, it was now. Uni emptied his stare as his entire being went into a trance-like zone. He could feel every fiber of his muscles tighten as he pressed the ball of his left foot into the platform, bracing for takeoff. His Uni-Eye interface opened the upcoming countdown, accurately predicting the exact time of the green light, signaling the start of the race. If everything went to plan, he would have an edge against his fierce competition. Uni's interface predicted the green light a tenth of a second before the entire stage lit up. As every fiber of his muscles exploded off of the platform in a powerful leap, the stage lit up in green. His exact start threw off several of his competitors as they stumbled to catch their senses. Uni had now progressed past half of the 20,000 racers. He viciously fought to catch the frontliners who took off ahead of him, descending into the 8-mile freefall whirlpool tunnel. As his fellow racers free fell towards the tunnel, Uni managed to get an extra wing flap, speeding his descent and passing hundreds of experienced racers in his backdraft. He's not gonna make it, Tara cried out, realizing that Uni was accelerating at a dangerously fast level to where he would either pass out or lose control. His eye system went berserk, warning him of his fading consciousness as he flew into the water tunnel. Uni was all too aware of the risk of his accelerated freefall as he used his body at the last minute to bump into a fellow competitor, resetting his senses and gaining back his consciousness just before hitting the water entrance and being ricocheted through the ocean along the lit underwater route. Uni's webbing thickened. His external eye lens covered his eyes, and his gills under his chest struggled to inhale oxygen and release carbon dioxide as he viciously stroked through the water. He could see the fading trail of bubbles as the experienced swimmers cut through the water like soft butter, slowly leaving him in their backstream. I just have to make it to the land route. Just have to. With 1 mile left in the water, Uni began setting up his plan for the land route. He kept an eye on the cameras, and could begin to see the front runners making their way onto the beach. The first 10 runners began to pick up their stride as their bodies assimilated from sea to land. The land course was an 8-mile trek through jungle and up a mountain, where they were free to fly 20 miles back to the platform. The jungle course was barely wide enough for a runner and filled with obstacles. Uni desperately increased his rapid swim strokes, even propelling himself with minor wing gusts. He knew he was using up his energy fast, but he had to make it to the sand to have a fighting chance against the top 10 runners who were already starting to comb their way through the jungle. Within 100 feet of the jungle, the first runner was hit by a bending tree out of nowhere, knocking him to the ground. The other runners struggled to pick him up and continue the race. Suddenly, trees started swinging towards them. "What's going on?" they asked in disarray. They dodged each attack and began jumping over, crawling under, and running past such attacks. "Reset path," Uni said into his headset as he raced towards the surface and the upcoming beach. Suddenly, a Terra Reformer machine came driving through the pathway, knocking tree limbs out of the way and throwing the racers off the track. The runners struggled to get to their feet as he stumbled back onto the track. Uni propelled himself out of the water with his wings, hitting the sand in a violent roll and jumping back into the air, his wings struggling to pick him up. Other racers were on the beach ahead of him and ducked out of his way as he recklessly flew headfirst towards the jungle. "Clear path, plot course, exact measurements," Uni shouted. 3 feet, 4 inches wide, 10 feet clearance, his eye system responded. Uni flew into the jungle 7 feet off the ground. He closed his wings to dive through the 3-foot gap provided by the machines. Swooping in, he used his hands and wings to fly and bounce between branches, pushing off of tree trunks in his wake. Terra Reformers worked up ahead of him, pulling trees and tree limbs out of his way as he fumbled through with reckless abandon. The other racers ducked to get out of his way and then immediately followed him, step for step, at the same breakneck speed. Uni was fighting neck to neck for the lead. As the forest cleared up ahead for the mountain summit, Uni pushed off of the racers directly behind him and made a final push to start his 20-mile flight course back to the platform, throwing his competitors back momentarily. He desperately pushed with all his might to get himself a head start, which was short-lived, as the deafening flaps of wings caught up to him, throwing him around violently with their wind gusts. He watched while trying to maintain flight in these violent winds as racers pushed past him, increasing the wind turmoil and gaining distance ahead of him. Uni-I, change trajectory. I need to ricochet my speed for a chance at a placing. Recalibrating, 90% risk factor. Increase to 4-mile elevation for accelerated descent into course trajectory. 10% chance of maintaining consciousness during descent. A bright line appeared in Uni's visual field. He looked upwards at the steep climb he would have to make and mustered all his strength. He violently thrusted upwards out of the crowd of competitors, fighting to free himself of the strong turbulent winds of the flapping competitors around him. Each thrust seemed more violent than the next, as he willed himself further and further above the route. Approximately 4 miles up, he was at the peak of his limits, and that's when his accelerated descent started. But only this time he found himself in a rapid, uncontrolled freefall. Uni's body plummeted headfirst, back down toward the route. He was clearly unconscious. His teammates shouted for him to wake up. Suddenly, he woke in a panic, roughly 200 feet above the other competitors, and opened his wings. The loud noise of his wings catching the wind boomed across the course. The fury of the wind coming off of his wings was enough to blow some competitors off route. He sped past several racers, knocking them off course, as his speed was twice as fast as theirs, making his way to the top 10. Uni used his speed to slightly swoop upwards to gain more acceleration on his way back down. This time, he found himself directly over the top 10. The finishing platform was in sight, as they all increased their speed for the final push. Uni found himself unable to pass them as he trailed close behind, so he climbed a bit as he sped forward, flying directly above the top 10. As the first racer was about to land on the pedestal, Uni closed his wings and plummeted directly towards him. The other racers ducked out of the way as he recklessly fell into the first competitor, pushing him aside. The crowd gasped in concern. Uni laid motionless, sprawled over onto his side after hitting the floor hard and being thrown to the ground. The other racers surrounded him. As Uni groaned and opened his eyes, he could see Dekka crouching above him. "You crazy bastard, haha, you almost won." Dekka grabbed Uni and raised him up, putting Uni's arm over his shoulder. The other racers also helped Uni get to his feet. The crowd erupted in cheers. Uni was given a contested second place. Chapter 6. New Life. Ivali and Lena looked on from a galaxy next to the 622nd quadrant. "Preparing our surveillance Citadel server." The couple set up proton energy fields while remaining inside the server. "Assembling Series 1 portal gate." They aimed the portal towards a new planet. "Creating wormhole towards N-anomaly." The two used the portal to create a wormhole right at the atmospheric level of the new planet. "Creating gate to stabilize wormhole." A photon grid was assembled on the other side of the wormhole. Then nanite machines filled the structure, creating a gate for the portal. "Optimizing consistency." Preparing to set up local server. The couple programmed a holographic photon server through the wormhole. Creating holographic observatory bodies. They now used the new server on the inside of the new planet to upload their holographic forms. Ivali and Lena were now on planet N-22. The entire planet was mostly watery and swamp-like, bubbling up hot mud all around. It was teeming with water vapor, fog, and steamy in temperature. Energy shroud. Ivali projected his energy observational shroud within a 30-foot radius of himself. He was almost blinded from what he saw. His entire surroundings were reading red thermal heat energy signatures. "Citadel, I hope you're seeing this. I'm getting absurd energy readings from all the energy wavelengths." "Observed. Can you differentiate the life forms?" "Well, no, I can't, but it's like the entire planet is alive. This might sound insane, but even the air is teeming with radioactive cells. These cells are actually alive, giving off life energy patterns. It's safe to say these are amoebas or similar to them. They are single-cell living organisms. It seems that every inch of space around me is teeming with these radioactive organisms. And we know that amoebas can self-replicate. This is huge. This sun is still unstable as per our calculations. It's shooting out flares in an unpredictable pattern, and it does seem to have a holding pattern, although it is slightly modified with each flare. There's a 30% chance of it becoming supernova, and because of its size, a 100% chance of becoming a black hole thereafter, the Citadel server responded. What's the impact of this twin star on the 626, now twin galaxy? Ively asked. There is a large planet that is equally pulled from both suns. As a result, it is simply spinning in place and is in the direct path of this planet. Oh no. How long does this planet have? 700 days under the calculation of the 24-hour Earth designated module. Damn it. Ively was in tears. All this life he found would be gone in 700 days. We will keep observation here with our new server. Lena and I will remain for our usual 6-week observational period. Oh, and by the way, send through an object I had with me, designated Uni-I, cubic hard drive. Understood. Chapter 7, Menstrual Deeds. Eleonora laid on her huge, luxurious, plush, golden canopy-veiled bed. She was jeweled with body chains, rings, her diadem, and her crown. She also wore a golden sheer robe under a large, loosely draped, red velvet gown. Her feet were bare, with a toe ring on her second toe and an ankle band attached to several ankle chains. Her neck was supported by a huge golden plush cushion with tassels on the edges of it. An armed guard stood at each of the 4 exits of her large, luxurious bedded room. Bring in the new boy, she motioned to the guard, with her left hand pointing towards the door, far down ahead of her on the left. A brain-chipped guard entered the rose-gold curtains of the door on the left, pulling the arm of what appeared to be a 15-year-old nude teen and shoving the boy into the room. I'll call you Intrigue for now. It seems the cloning came out okay. Decent muscle maturity. Of course, you will grow rapidly within this next year. Come over here and let me feel your body, King Mother Eleonora ordered. The boy nervously walked over to her bedside. Eleonora ran her hand along his chest and abs, and later his glutes. Cute. I'm guessing you're about 5 feet 8 inches and 140 pounds. I wonder what you'll look like in the next few months. Guards, make sure that he is trained intensely and he is fed adequate protein. I won't have any runts in my stables. Yes, King. The mind-controlled guards responded. The guard from the left door walked in to grab the boy. Wait. He can stay and watch. Eleonora then motioned to the guard down by the veiled door on the right. Bring in Milano. Milano was one of the highest sought-after males. Many king mothers had attempted to buy him from Eleonora. He was an organic male, wild-caught, and a 3-time Olympian gold medalist in the long jump and 200-meter race in track and field events, as well as the aerial rings winner in the gymnastic events. The guard on the right escorted in a dark-skinned, athletic-looking man, just about 6 feet tall, about 185 pounds, with light brown, large, lazy-looking eyes. His hair was very shortly groomed and tapered, resembling stubble. As the light hit his body, it revealed intricate muscular definition. His stride was precise and cautionary, which made him resemble a muscular but lithe jaguar. King? Milano asked, in a soft, low voice. His eyebrows were raised in concern, bringing out his light brown, lazy eyes even more noticeably. King Mother Eleonora gestured towards him, curling her right index finger. Get over here. He made his way over to the left side of her bed, as she was still facing the boy on her left. He stepped in front of the boy, who just watched on in quiet surprise. Eleonora bit her bottom lip in excitement as she ran her right hand along his chest and abdominal muscles. She reached up and grabbed the back of his neck and pulled him down onto her, tilting her head away to reveal the right side of her neck. She directed him towards it. As Milano's upper body was pulled on top of Eleonora, he began planting soft kisses on her neck. Eleonora closed her eyes, enjoying it to the fullest. She felt the lean, wound-up muscles of his back as he slowly maneuvered his body weight onto the bed above her. She placed her hand on top of his head, feeling his stubble-like short hair, and pushed his head downwards along her body. Her right leg reached out and pulled his head down, under her gown and between her legs. Her breathing heightened and her body writhed in pleasure. "Pick me up," she ordered as she wrapped her legs around his head. Milano's right arm slightly shook as he managed to get his knees secured into the bed and brace his body with his left arm, only using his right arm to pick her up. Eleonora gazed down with disgust on his slight moment of weakness. "Put me down." She sat up on her elbows, glaring at him. His eyes looked downwards in her direction instead of directly at her. "This hasn't happened before. Are you not eating?" "Yes, I am, King," Milano replied. Eleonora took the toes of her right foot and pushed his head back with it. "Get out." She was partially angry at Milano and partially upset because she also knew she was heavier than the last time they met a month earlier. "I've been eating too much lately," she whispered to herself. "Everyone leave." Eleonora stormed out of her bedding room and into her formal meeting room. Era, I need you at once." Era cautiously came walking into her king mother's room. "Mother?" "Sweetheart, I need you to program an attack for me." "You do know what the other king mothers are trying to do to me, don't you?" Eleonora, king mother to Era of the 1800, said to her daughter. "Mother, this whole thing is getting out of hand. We, the 18, do not approve of the way this whole situation is going. We daughters are inseparable, and we do not want to fight each other in this war of yours." "You would choose your half-sisters over your own mother? Ridiculous. Get your priorities straight. You wouldn't be here if I wasn't forced to lay with the last tyrant. Forced, Era. I didn't have a choice. That's how you came about. Think about your mother here." "But mother, it was this way for all 2,000 of you adolescent wives. I understand, but still I can't help you kill my other sisters. This is just something I cannot do, mother." "Disobeying the king is a high offense, Era. It is treason. Had you been a man, you'd be publicly executed for all to see." "Mother, goodbye. You cannot leave. You are needed here, as are all the prodigy daughters. You know your role here." Era wearily left the room, cautiously avoiding her king mother's deadly stare and wary of any potential menstrual violence that could ensue. As she left, she immediately contacted the other members of the 1800, her sisters. "It's my mother. I have to escape. She'll start a war. We must shut down all access to the servers. I don't want us to have to kill each—" "Ah!" Era screamed out at the top of her lungs. Her king mother grabbed her by her hair from behind her. "You ungrateful little bitch, going behind my back. You treasonous little girl." Her mother, Eleonora, slammed her head into the left wall of the corridor over and over again. When she eventually stopped, the girl was unconscious. "Shit, no, I didn't mean to. Guards, help, my daughter. She was my programmer," Eleonora screamed. The guards came running over. Eleonora ordered, "Get Ira's body to the emergency chamber. The 18 will respond. Maybe they can help her." Eleonora turned around and placed her hand against the bloodied wall. "I'll need a new programmer. I know just where to look." Meanwhile, all the remaining members of the 18 listened in on their linked connection. "Did you all receive Ira's transmission?" Sarah, one of the 1800, asked. "Ira, she's dead," cried Yura, another of the sisters. "We don't know that yet. We'll go access her body at the emergency chamber," another sister replied. "But sisters, you heard Ira. Our mothers want us to go to war against each other." "It was inevitable with the way things were heading," another said. "It was that way from the start. That's why we had to disperse and create other kingdoms." "We were wrong thinking our estranged mothers simply wanted to meet us out of love. This entire time, all they cared about was power. And getting back at all men for the way they were treated." "Where will we go?" "You know where," Sarah replied. "We owe them an apology." The 1800 sisters immediately destroyed all local servers used to power their king mother's weapons, shutting them off from their auto-control systems, and fled to the refuge. The refuge was a stronghold for men who wished to live out their final short lifespans after their duties expired. It was also the fortified city created by the 200, or the 200 sons of the last tyrant. These men left as boys, as they had no place available for them under the cruel rulership of their mothers. Since accepting back their mothers and hoping to unite all their siblings, they were the subject of ridicule and blame, always used as a scapegoat for any and all problems or feelings the women harbored. After just 3 years under this type of hardship, they unanimously agreed to leave their cruel situations. At first, there were constant demands from the king mothers for the boys to return and help build their kingdoms. But with time, the mothers accepted their position and formed the United Brotherhood Treaty, citing their city as a refuge for men where they would not be pursued or attacked. Hence, this was the place that the sisters would go to and beg their brothers to give them refuge. The 1800 gathered at the main gate in their mobile transport units. They sent out a message for peaceful harbor. Immediately, the 200 descended upon the gate. The eldest brother, Tehran, addressed the 1800 women. "This land is under a ceasefire treaty. Do you expect us to give up our peace from the king mothers on your behalf? Where were you when we were ostracized and treated as less than human by them? Oh, that's right. You took their side by remaining silent. You brought this upon yourselves. We cannot let you in." "We were wrong, Tehran. We should have stood up for you, for all of you," Yura replied. "We've seen the true nature of those we called our mothers. We didn't know them, and they didn't know us. We simply craved the affection of a mother as children. Ignorance was bliss, but we cannot allow our estranged mothers to wage a war. We've disconnected our servers and destroyed them. For all intents and purposes, We may have thwarted war already. Tehran turned to his brothers, the remaining members of the 200. Brothers, what do you think? I think we should all stand together, Tehran. I think we should support our sisters. After all, we were all a progeny of the late tyrant. We've been through it all together as infants to adolescents. Let's reunite the 2000. The 1800 sisters gathered around the 200 brothers, and they all embraced. All we need is each other, Tehran smiled. Welcome to the refuge. The gates were opened, and the sisters made their way into the refuge. King Mother Eleonora stood atop the ruling spectrum, owning the most Olympian males and the largest number of mechanized war units. However, without her prodigy daughter, she would not be able to clone more males or create more war machinery. She needed the brotherhood. Men need their space. They need their own properties where they wouldn't feel pressured. What if I could give them kingdoms? The thought pleased her, and a smile slowly overtook her face. Word rang out across each kingdom that there was to be a worldwide united peace summit between king mothers. It would be held in the Olympic arena, but will not be open to the public. Only rulers and public servants could attend. Eleonora linked her mobile defense unit to 3/4 of the rest of her mechanized army and made her way out to the arena in her full showing of power. Due to previous attacks by other king mothers, she was well aware that she held a high bargaining value. She was now willing to use that to her advantage. She would do whatever it took to procure her a kingdom and possibly a few progeny daughters. Eleonora waited and waited, but none of the other king mothers showed up. What is this? Why are they not here? Eleonora sent out a virtual meeting to all king mothers. She had no response. Then a thought came to her. What if they couldn't respond? Then a thought came to her. What if they couldn't respond? What if they lost their progeny daughters and their servers? Then a thought came to her. What if they lost everything and used this opportunity to take over her server? Eleonora quickly turned on her live feeds throughout her kingdom. Within the walls of her own kingdom, in the city meeting hall, she saw the remaining king mothers all assembled. Hello, Eleonora. In case you were wondering why we weren't at the World Council meeting, here's your answer. Since we lost everything, we decided to take yours. Ha! What nonsense. You can't operate my server or any of my machinery unless you have access to it. So, in effect, ladies, I've won, Eleonora smirked. And how have you won? We are occupying your kingdom as we speak. As a matter of fact, we may just help ourselves to some of these fine male specimens you've grown here. The women all laughed to themselves. After all, we do know that your collection far exceeds ours. Ha ha. And here I was, willing to be civil with you women. I was prepared to offer you my collection in exchange for a progeny daughter or two, but seeing as though you possess none such progenies, I've decided to return my considerable mechanical armed forces and kill you all. Ha ha ha! Oh, really now, darling? You see, there is only one of you and over 1,800 of us. Do you really think you can win? All you have is your personal defense unit. That's all you have. The mechanical war units are unmanned. You don't fool me, Amazara. Okay, so we don't have our mechanicals with us. But still, we have our entire police force armed with missiles that can and will take down your units. Also, 1,900 personal defense units in total. You don't stand a chance. Eleonora smirked. You certainly drive a hard bargain. So, what is it that you want? Our daughters have reunited with the 200 brothers. Since you have considerable forces on hand, we'd like you to join us in taking over the city of refuge. That's the only way we can get our prodigies back. And what if they won't come back? Eleonora asked. Then they will all die, of course, Amazara replied. Careful, Amazara. Premeditated murder is judged very harshly. After all, it's not under the category of menstrual murders. Oh, you are clever and ever so devious. You obviously murdered your daughter under the temporary insanity clause of menstrual murder, so we have no right to judge you. But just think of how stupid your action was. Because of you, we've lost all our daughters. Surely you can't blame me for a little outburst. Come on, ladies. We're all women, and I also have reason to request aid from the Brotherhood. I will be the bigger man in this situation and forgive you for invading my city. I will join you as soon as my units are able to. Eleonora responded. Splendid. In the meantime, I hope you don't mind if we help ourselves to something a little organic. The women laughed. Milano, was it? After all, I don't own any Olympic winners. Oh, that's right. That's because you had them all. The women screamed in laughter and were utterly entertained by their conquest of Eleonora's city. Eleonora grinded her teeth in disgust, but then a smile slowly made its way across her face, then a chuckle, and then a full-blown laugh. I hope you find him. Unknown to the other king mothers, Eleonora had sent all her highly decorated organic men, including Milano, to the city of refuge upon her leaving. She wanted to make sure that if anything happened to her kingdom, at least she'll still have some bargaining chips on the table. Eleonora also sent 3/4 of her entire mechanical fleet of war units towards the other king mothers' kingdoms, targeting all machinery and weapons. She was a gambler by nature. She went all in. Chapter 8. The Archaic Infosphere. Uni laid resting after his Olympic ordeal. He was examined and told to rest for at least 5 days. It was now the 3rd day, and he was restless. He reached over and grabbed his Uni eye system headset. Terra? Decca? Are you there? Why am I not surprised? I bet you're itching to get into trouble, huh? Terra replied. Good old Uni. Seeing that you worked yourself unconscious a couple days ago. How's it going, old sport? Decca mockingly laughed. Sometimes I wonder if you guys are really Team Uni or not. Do you really expect me to stay in bed for 5 days? History is made by the brave and the bold, my friends. Who's ready to make history? Uni jumped to his feet. His head spun slightly, and his body ached. Ow. Haha. Please, Uni, don't push it today. Who knows what condition your body is in? Terra warningly replied to Uni. Listen, kid, if you need me, I'm here. But don't forget that my preliminary bouts start tomorrow, so coach is keeping an eye on me. Well, gotta go weigh in and lose a pound for tomorrow. Decca replied. Oh, that's right. Good luck, champ. I know you won't need it. Uni laughed. Don't worry about me, guys. I'll just sit here, run diagnostics, and hack into Citadel like usual. Haha, sounds good, Terra replied. Talk to you later, Decca responded. Uni ended the transmission. I wonder if I could browse the old Citadel Earth server for any ongoing operations. Uni approached the large black sphere sitting close by. It was an older model infosphere used by the Citadel server on Earth. I love this old gem. Infosphere, what are the current ongoing projects on Earth? Sorry, the server on Earth is currently inactive. It does run a 30-minute cycle every 24 hours, performing maintenance checks and fixing errors. Those are all current tasks, the infosphere replied. Ha, that's it? So what about all the inhabitants on the Earth server? Uni asked. All 5 billion active members have been moved to our photon and dark matter servers on this planet. They chose to switch servers when all the synthetic humans left Earth. Right, I would have too. Those Earth humans are crazy, I heard. They live and die by their ancient mythologies. So is there no one else currently on the server on Earth? Uni asked. Since the server is currently on a sleep cycle, I have no updated information, replied the infosphere. I don't buy it. That old server is a treasure cove for parts I could use to improve my eye system. Uni wondered aloud. Since I can't do anything here, I'll just pop over there and do some research. Uni looked out of his treehouse window. Now how can I get to the portal without causing a commotion? Then a cheesy grin came over him. Infosphere, transport me to the portal for Earth base. The infosphere opened up into a seated device. Beginning route. Uni climbed inside. Wow, it's actually quite comfortable. So this is how it felt when Dad decided to get brain chipped and visit the Citadel? I feel so nostalgic. The infosphere hovered out of the treehouse and elevated towards the magnetic sky rails above, adjusting the nearest rail path. Then it almost silently sped along the route towards the portal gate for Earth. I'll take you with me to keep a low profile, Uni told the infosphere. The infosphere started up the portal gate as they made their way towards it. Then they warped right through to the other side. As Uni exited the portal in the infosphere, he was hit by the sight of an immense white, hexagonal, solar partition wall, which he couldn't even see around. This is gigantic, Uni said in awe. Take me into the lobby of the server, en route to the lobby of Citadel Earth, the infosphere replied. They made their way around the massive wall that seemed to curve around forever and went underground through the server's labyrinth, ending up on a white ascending platform. The infosphere powered it up as it approached, and they ascended right into the massive lobby of the Citadel Earth server. As they ascended, Uni could see each level light up as they made their way to the lobby floor. As the platform stopped, the floor and walls of the giant building were gradually lit up. Uni climbed out of the infosphere and slowly turned around, mouth opened, looking in amazement at the wide open lobby as it spiraled up 100 floors. Wow, this is impressive. Did people actually live here? The infosphere hovered over to the large central console in the lobby. The screen turned on and responded to his question. The Citadel initially was built to temporarily transition the first 100,000 beta applicants onto the server. In the beginning stages, Applicants were all roomed and their minds were connected to the server via virtual reality helmets, connecting their cerebral directly into the server while also connecting through their retina displays in the helmet's interior visor. During the process, the applicant's body would be taken care of by living assistant machinery, monitoring all vital signs and assisting, if need be, with vital functions, while the body was in a state of coma. This process lasted firstly for 1 week. Then applicants were asked if they'd like to move into phase 2 of the program, which was a 1-year testing of their virtual connection while keeping their bodies on life support. These applicants consisted of the top 0.3% of the population. The cost for phase 2 of the program was $100 million each. This cost ensured that the server had triple backup protection running at all times, ensuring no downtime on all three at any point in the process. The cost also included extensive patient care, including an in vitro feeding specific to each applicant's needs, as well as maintenance of all bodily functions for the course of the year. After this 1-year initial beta testing, patients were asked if they'd like to move on to Phase 3. Phase 3 of the program was a final one. Applicants had to ensure that they provided a living will and testament to any and all personal and business belongings. These files had to be fingerprinted and signed with vocal identification, retinal scan, and DNA splice in the presence of legal representation. The cost for each one of the 100,000 applicants was $10 billion. This money went into the initial building of the cloud servers, satellites, 1 billion terabytes of data for each applicant, artificial intelligence software to adapt to each applicant and assist mental transitioning, translation, and transcoding of data seamlessly and at all times. $5 billion went towards the analyzation, dismantling, calibration, synthesizing, and repurposing of all biological materials, enabling complete biological redesignation and selection, also known as New Body 1.0. The New Body program also included machinery for DNA splicing, modifying, as well as incubation chambers for biological growth. All prices were completely based on actual costs of supplies and maintenance. All participants gave complicit agreement upon all terms, and thus Citadel was the transitional residence for the initial 5 million, housing 100,000 at a time in 500 7-day increment cycles. This totaled approximately 10 years, after which the mobile infosphere and brain terminal came into development, speeding up the process and cutting costs by 78%. Lastly, the total cost was subsidized as most applicants chose immediate disposal of biological data upon mobile connection. This ended all residents at the Citadel server. Uni was speechless. He stood in front of the central console in shock, completely unaware that he was leaning forward with wide eyes and his mouth wide open. "Whoa," is all he was able to mutter. Chapter 9. A Planetary Plan. There has to be a way to save this planet. We haven't found life on the converging planet, but this new star might make terra reformation possible on it. It'll be a huge waste to destroy it. Ivily thought aloud. We might not have to destroy it at all. What if we could move it somehow? Lena replied. Exactly. We could build twin planetary warp gates. We could position one ahead of the current location and one ahead of the planet's converging point. Ivali's eyes shone bright with hope. Citadel, we'll need a minimum of 2 billion planetary gate builders, 1 billion after convergence point X, and 1 billion at expected planetary route, Lena ordered. Selected destination points fixed. Circular layout alignment evenly spaced for gate dimensions, creating jump point. Manufacturing kinetic power manipulators. Process will take 4,800 hours. The server responded. That's 200 Earth days. The convergence will happen in 690 days. This might actually work, Ivali exclaimed. Let's hope this doesn't complicate other factors with the two orbits, Lena cautioned. Oh, I'm hoping not, but it is probable. Ivali had his hand placed on his forehead, contemplating the most grievous outcomes he could fathom. Lena pulled him with her as they hovered in their translucent holographic bodies. You may want to see this. The amoebas are crystallizing together? No, wait. The amoebas have come together to form a life form, and the exterior is hardening. It's forming a resistance to the harsh radioactive climate. Ivali stared in amazement. I'm guessing that this life form is developing a very dense skin, similar to maybe a crocodile? Lena wondered out loud. Amazing. The couple looked on in amazement while checking the life signs and temperature zones of the planet. Chapter 10. Checkmate. King Mother Eleonora made her way back to her now under siege kingdom. Looks like you guys went out of your way to destroy my underprotected entry wall. You seem to have killed off my guards as well. I'm just curious, what use are you hoping to have with my kingdom in this state? She asked the assembled king mothers as they entered the large auditorium. Eleonora, this was just basic self-defense. Naturally, all we have are our manual personal defense units and our police forces. So we have to be careful, no hard feelings. The king mother couldn't help hiding her smirk of delight at Eleonora's demise. I see. Eleonora seemed unusually calm and collected. Is that it? The king mothers laughed amongst themselves. I was expecting something a little more menstrual. Once again, the other king mothers bursted out in laughter. Eleonora, the eldest, has finally accepted her place, dead last. That's what happens when you flaunt your wealth in front of us, another king mother replied. Speaking of wealth, where are your mechanized units? Don't tell me you can't control them without your programmer, the king mothers muttered amongst themselves. Maybe she was bluffing all along. Eleonora took a good look at all the king mothers laughing and scorning her. I promise you, they'll be ready by the time we approach the refuge. Psh, whatever this game is you're playing, Eleonora, we are tired of it. Ladies, let's get our daughters back. About time. I was getting tired of this huge broken down castle. Oh, and your men? I've seen better. Eleonora smirked. Oh, I guess that means you haven't found my organics. The king mother rushed at her, attempting to claw her eyes out. Eleonora stepped to the side and grabbed her hair, smashing her head into the wall. She then pulled a hair-pick dagger from her sleeve and stabbed her repeatedly in the back of the head. I see you still haven't lost your touch. Don't trail too far behind. Who knows what you have up your sleeves? Of course, I'll just go get changed. We'll leave upon your immediate withdrawal. Splendid. Eleonora quickly went into her server room and checked on the status of her mechanized units. A smirk crept across her face. Minutes later, she descended from her castle into her defense unit. "Finally," Amazara exclaimed. "Let's go." The women, in their 1800 defense units, made their way across the world towards the Brotherhood of the Refuge. Tehran, the oldest of the 200 brothers, monitored their territory within 200 miles. He could see an army of at least 1,800 defense units closing in within 100 miles. "They're on their way," he warned. The Brotherhood manned the exterior of the city. "This city was built for defense. We won't be infiltrated. Trust us." The men readied themselves. "Is that an infosphere?" asked a king mother en route to the refuge. "What? An infosphere in the middle of nowhere? Is the Citadel active again?" another asked. "So strange, and it seems to be following us from above." "Pay it no mind, they just observe anyway. Citadel does not interfere with our affairs. They simply observe and collect data." "Right, I remember now. It's still a bit eerie though, just hanging around there." "We're closing in on the refuge. Just 30 miles to go. Remember, ladies, do not take no for an answer. When this all ends, we will own everything." The ladies surrounded the small city. "Okay, children, come out. We are your mothers. We just want to talk." The girls gathered around Sarah as she made their reply. "We, the 18, have decided that we will no longer serve you, king mothers. It was our naivety that caused this in the first place, thinking that all you really wanted was to adopt us out of love, but really it was all about power and your selfish wants. Goodbye, king mothers. We will never see you again." "Disobeying your king mother is treason, daughters. Must I remind you? If you are not with us, then you are standing against us, and we will use excessive force against any enemy of our kingdoms." Brothers, initialize Phase 1 of city protection. At once, the city became covered by a white metallic dome. The dome then energized and created an energy field around it. "Now we are immune to most projectile attacks as long as we keep the energy up." "Fine. I see you chose to stand against us. It breaks my heart, daughters. This is what happens when you listen to those men. Now I'll have to show you why you don't upset your king mother." The king mothers fired their projectiles at the city from all sides at once. All except Eleonora. Eleonora slowly pulled back from the city gates. "Where do you think you're going, Eleonora? We had a deal." "Never mind her, we'll kill her later." Missile turrets around the city began firing at the king mother's defense units. Many of the defense units were able to shoot down the missiles, but 100 defense units were fatally hit. "Focus on the turrets. Without them, the city is defenseless." One by one, the ladies' defense units blew up the surrounding missile turrets at the expense of 50 more of their own defense units. "We're almost there, ladies. Keep attacking the city." "It'll take you ladies all day to break through that electrical field." Eleonora smirked. "I, on the other hand, have the means to end this all right now." As Eleonora finished speaking, she was joined by thousands of mechanical units. "What is this, Eleonora? You only had 2,000 units. How did you get so many?" "Oh, that's because while you were making yourself cozy at the expense of, my castle, I was connecting all of your mechanized units to my server with my own units. I just used the connect command." Eleonora smirked. "Connect command? Oh, maybe your daughters never told you, but all of our units were meant to be able to connect with each other in case of an emergency. As a matter of fact, I will show you guys the true power of the connect command. Oh no, she's figured it out. Is Era awake yet? We'll need her to shut down Eleonora's server. Hold on to something, Terra exclaimed. Suddenly, a loud boom was heard. The walls on the exterior of the city blew apart, taking down a few King Mother units with it. A thunderously loud engine roared to life. The entire city was lifted into the air as a large white orb. Let's set coordinates for Eleonora's city. Not so fast, King Mother, Amazara said. Ladies, shoot it out of the sky. The remaining 1,600 King Mothers launched an all-out assault on the city. How are the walls holding up? Sarah asked. The electric fields are at 60% charge. More than enough for this kind of fire we're taking, Tehran responded. It's Era. She regained consciousness. Perfect. Now we just need to lose these women. Leave it to me. Tehran grabbed a control unit and pressed on the thumb trigger, launching particle flare missiles. The refuge shot out tiny missiles around the orbital craft, blocking and exploding enemy attacks and providing thunderous cover for their ship. The engines boomed and the city was launched on course. Eleonora, you bitch, you did nothing. Where are you hiding? I was saving my surprise for after the commotion, of course, Eleonora calmly replied. The remaining 1,600 King Mothers looked on as Eleonora's defense unit began connecting with the surrounding mechanical units. What is this? Oh, I can form any device I want to. In this case, I'll be something you witches are not. A woman. Eleonora's defense unit took on the form of a 200-foot woman. Oh, and this is not for show either. Check this out. Eleonora's mechanical hand transformed into a rotating Gatling plasma cannon. Eleonora, wait! Amazara pleaded. Eleonora fired her revolving plasma cannon at King Mother Amazara, obliterating her defense unit into pieces of scrap metal. Anyone else? Eleonora patiently asked. Run, escape for your lives, the women screamed. Oh, this is comical. And what about my poor city? Did you spare it from your greed and jealousy? You see, ladies, the reason I was richer than you women is because you were too simple. You never understood how to think like a man. And about my organic men, Bertha, you wouldn't even know how to use them correctly because you're far too fat. I'll kill you, you wretched bitch, shouted Bertha, the heaviest of the remaining King Mothers, as she turned towards Eleonora, firing all her weapons. Eleonora had the entire units making up her body fire defensive cover, blocking all incoming ammunition. Is that all you've got? She shouted in laughter. Then she reached down and crushed the defense unit, making it unable to fire. At least one of you was woman enough to fight me, but keep in mind, women, I always win. You bitch, the women screamed. The over 1,500 remaining King Mothers turned to fight, firing all their ammunitions at Eleonora. Eleonora grabbed Bertha's incapacitated defense unit and threw it at the path of the incoming women. Then she formed a plasma-spinning cannon out of her units and shot it with a powerful beam. Whoom could be heard as the powerful beam blasted to its target. Then an incredibly loud doom exploding into flame and whirling dust around in a cloud, obstructing their view. Spread out! She can't aim at all of us at once! The King Mothers spread out into a wide circular rotation. Lock on and fire your biggest missiles at her. The King Mothers launched their biggest armaments from every direction. Boom, brack-a-boom, boom, ba-doom. The missiles connected. Yes, we did it, they shouted in triumph. No, you didn't. You women never learned to sacrifice for the greater good, replied Eleonora. What? How? Where is she? The ladies looked above to notice flying mechanical units merged to sniping cannons hovering above them. How are you doing this? Oh, I may have learned a little code here or there. Just another reason why I am better than you women. Eleonora fired at the women from the cannons above them. A gargantuan boom could be heard as the ladies' units exploded in flame. Eleonora once again manipulated the connect function and transformed into a 20-foot mechanical woman with 3 large sniping plasma cannons on each side of her, resembling wings. I've never had this much fun before. Eleonora's body shook with excitement. Now to tie up loose ends. Eleonora set her unit's route for her city. I'll give them an offer they can't refuse, she smirked to herself. Chapter 11. Upgrades. Uni wandered around the old Citadel server toward the massive 3D printers. This is incredible. I'm sure I can use some of this hardware to make upgrades on my eye system, he thought. Everything is holographic now on our planet, but I still need hardware. Maybe even physical enhancement upgrades as well. Haha. He laughed. Uni brought his infosphere over to the huge printers. Okay, here we go. Uni attached his eye system to the infosphere and began planning what he wanted. Okay, let's print me out some external muscle. Ha, I'm coming for you, Dad. He laughed. The infosphere did a full body scan and found all of Uni's biological statistics. Infosphere, let's make some muscle fibers, up to 1,000 times stronger than biological ones. Also, an artificial exoskeleton to attach them to. Also, let's expand this eye system and input circuitry for additional exoskeleton control assistance. Also, before you start, let's boost the power of this eye system by 3,000%. I want to be a fully powered server. What else? Oh, let's make some hardware orbital eye units, way better than my holographic ones. I want these to be mobile hard disk drive and optical 360-degree input with all fields of vision, including infrared fields. Let's see, that's about it for now. But I might think of something else in a minute, he said to the infosphere. This is too good to be true, he exclaimed, looking up and throwing his arms into the air. Creating schematics. There appears to be an additional program from Citadel wanting to assist with the upgrades. Should I allow? Oh, sounds awesome. Wake me up when the upgrades are complete, Uni responded, laying down and putting his hands behind his head. Understood, replied the infosphere. The program download prompt started, and suddenly something happened to Uni's eye system, preemptively knocking him unconscious. Sorry, young male. This is an emergency. I'll be needing a vehicle with upgrades of my own. My name is Ida, and my siblings need me, the captor announced. I will return your body after I have saved them. The infosphere opened up and placed Uni inside of it. A 3D printer expanded over Uni's body and began rotating. Sections of his eye system began becoming removed and replaced with new circuitry and parts. A protective mesh was placed around most of his body, and joint support was assembled and attached. A sensory covering was placed around his head and hands, making a head covering and tensile gloves. A headpiece with attaching exoskeleton was built around him and his wings and were attached to his body. Extra support around his face was attached. Then it began attaching exomuscular fibers around his neck, connecting it to his new exoskeleton collarbone, fusing it onto the skeleton. Exomuscular fibers were fused to all exoskeleton areas. Next, the orbital eyes were being assembled. "I'll be needing these," Ida stated. Chapter 12. Confrontation. The Brotherhood arrived at Eleonoria, the city of King Mother Eleonora. "We need to get her to the server," Tehran exclaimed. "She's barely conscious," replied Sarah. "She can't operate it." "Fine, we'll destroy it," the brother exclaimed. A flying mechanized unit appeared, intercepting the path of the floating refuge. "Can we be civil, children?" a voice emitting from the unit asked. "Eleonora, you of all people should know how vicious you are," Sarah exclaimed through the intercom. "Children, I'm sorry. My actions were not premeditated, I promise you," Eleonora replied. "I loved Era. It was simply a menstrual action, and I apologize. Is she alive?" "Era is with us, and you want us to believe you and just let you rule everyone? We don't trust you." "Oh, thank God she's all right. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please understand what I've been through. I was a victim too." "And now you've made victims out of all of us," Sarah replied. "Children, I promise never again to subject you to any oppression. I'm a mother. You know how crazy we can get. It's because I care. That is why I've eliminated the other king mothers. No more oppression, children. Now, let me be your mother." There was a moment of pause. The other king mothers were destroyed. "Can we trust her?" Yura asked. "Only one way to find out," Tehran responded. "Fine, Eleonora. Call us your children. Promise us the world. But you can do that without this server." Tehran launched a missile towards her central tower. Eleonora's unit blew up as it moved into the missile's path. Eleonora's unit blew up as it moved into the missile's path. "You children don't understand how it feels to be disrespected. If it wasn't for me and your previous mothers, none of you would be here," Eleonora screamed. Another missile was launched. Eleonora shot it down with a beam. Her units connected together to form a 100-foot woman this time. "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" she screamed, beating down on the refuge with her robotic arms. Huge booms could be heard as she relentlessly hit the refuge. "The shields! They're going down!" Tehran yelled. "Ah!" Eleonora screamed, smashing her mechanical arms into the refuge. "You don't have respect! Ungrateful! I should have never gave birth to you!" The last one of her smashes crushed into the armor of the refuge, incapacitating the energy field and on-site weaponry. "We're unbalanced. We have to distract her and land this thing before she destroys it with us inside," Tehran exclaimed. The refuge fired full-body cover missiles from all remaining weaponry. The missiles exploded all around the ship, hitting some of Eleonora's units and obstructing her field of vision. "Ah!" Eleonora screamed at the top of her lungs. "What are you doing? Stop this!" She flailed her mechanical arms around in a frenzy, attempting to clear the smoke. "That's it!" she screamed, and started firing her beam cannons sporadically, accidentally hitting some parts of her own kingdom. The refuge barely escaped the blasts and hid itself behind some of the remaining walls around her kingdom. Run! Tehran shouted. Get inside! The children, along with all the members of the Brotherhood, started running out of the refuge and into her kingdom. The nerve you have, trying to hide from me! I'll crush you all, shouted Eleonora in a fit of rage as she stomped around threateningly. Quick, everyone, get Era inside the castle, Tehran shouted to his brothers. Suddenly, blocks of stone came flying towards them, crushing 5 people and damaging the ship. The extremely irritated Eleonora began shooting and kicking down her stone walls. We're not going to make it, Sarah exclaimed, falling to the floor as the ground shook and rocks flew by, hitting everything around her. You insects, Eleonora shouted. I hate you. She positioned herself over the scurrying and injured teens. Eleonora raised her giant mechanical foot above them. I hate you, she screamed as she dropped her foot, intending to crush the children. Boom! A loud noise was heard as she was knocked off balance by a cluster of armored orbital units. What is this? Eleonora shouted in disbelief. She turned to see a hovering winged synthetic human 50 feet away. The cluster of armored orbital units separated into 6 separate units and revolved around Uni. Who are you? Synthetics are not allowed here, Eleonora shouted. An amplified voice of an AI came out of the machinery surrounding the boy. I am Ada. I've been living artificially for most of my life, but these are my siblings, and I won't let you kill them. You possessed the boy? Despicable, and a synthetic at that, Eleonora shouted. I'm merely borrowing his body and operating system, Ada replied. Ha, now I'll be responsible for killing a kidnapped synthetic. Who knows where this will lead? You idiot, Eleonora smirked. Die. Eleonora blasted thousands of cannons at the synthetic. The orbitals fired missiles exploding on impact and charged towards Eleonora. They produced an electronic force field and went smashing into her mechanical units, crushing and destroying parts of her body. Ha! You think I care about losing some machinery? I have more than enough to destroy you. Eleonora separated herself into thousands of singular units and went into a berserker rage. Ah! She blared out of her sound device as she fired wildly all around. You're dead! Her shots went right through the hovering synthetic figure. It was a hologram emitted by hundreds of tiny orbitals. Eleonora gasped in panic. What? Where? Boom. Eleonora was hit. The orbitals flew around her distracted units, firing cannons and breaking into them, destroying random units. It's too hard to control all of these, Eleonora shouted. Where are you? Ida used Uni's body to swoop in and transport everyone from the wreckage, while also controlling the orbital units. Thanks, Ida, said Sarah. Now to see if we can hook Era up to her server and end this. Bring Era over. Era was carried by the Brotherhood and seated at the server. She was barely conscious and couldn't even talk. Era, I know you're not feeling well, but can you just shut this server down? Sarah asked. Era feebly gazed around at everyone and then tried to focus on the server. Her eyes lost focus and she fell unconscious again. Era! They rushed over to her to check on her health. Let's get her in a recovery pod. We might have some time if Eleonora doesn't know that we survived. I'll distract her, Ida said, speaking from Uni's eye system. Ida dashed through the door and was immediately confronted by passing units. The units immediately fired at her. Metallic wing and force field, Ida commanded, as Uni's body reacted with metallic wings covering the body and emitting a force field that nullified the cannon fire. Destroy units, she commanded, and the wing metal covering shot into the unit's cannons, blowing them up. Ah, there you are, Eleonora shouted. Right by the castle, which means that they are shutting down the server. Over my dead body, Eleonora surrounded the top of the castle with her units. If I can't stop them, then I'll end it all myself. Fire! Orbitals, Ida shouted. The orbitals surrounded Uni's body and countered the cannon volley with their own. Very few attacks got through, hitting the castle walls. We're running out of time. Quickly, take her to the server, Tehran shouted. We'll dose her with adrenaline. The Brotherhood transported her from a pod to the server. They injected her with adrenaline into her heart. Ah! Era screamed. Era, your mother is attacking us. We need to shut the server down, Sarah calmly requested. Shutting the server down stops connection, but only if they are not already connected. And it seems like she has entered a connect and fuse command, which means that they are going to finish that action regardless of the server connection. Trying to override control, Era responded. I have the units under my control, but I can't control them because they are being fused together. Eleonora had once again transformed herself. This time, the units were fused together permanently. I know what you're doing, Era, but it won't work now, haha. I need some help, Era, Ida shouted. Connect us. Connecting to your interface now, Era responded. Ida, you must release this boy, or he could be another casualty in my mother's war. Ida responded. I will, as soon as I defeat your mother. Sister, give me some help. I'm going to send you parts and work with you, but please tell the boy, Era cautioned. Chapter 13, Change of Plans. Ivali and Lena worked non-stop at perfecting their planetary rescue project. Suddenly, Lena grabbed Ivali on the shoulder. Ivali, it's Uni. He's on Earth and someone is blocking my access to his eye system. She worried. What? Earth is dangerous. Who knows what could have happened to him? Ivali grimaced and clenched his teeth in frustration. Project Planetary Jump, please initiate auto protocol and continue sequence. Keep projected launch schedule. Understood, the Citadel AI responded. Ivali grabbed Lena by the shoulders. Lena, let's go get our boy. Chapter 14, Legacy. Using Uni's system, Ida battled the 100-foot fortified Titan, Eleonora. Era sent layers of armaments, which Uni's system assembled mid-air, forming a loosely shaped giant of his own. Cannons fired and intercepted each other, and the ground shook upon physical impact of their giant bodies. Uni's frame was still not as rigid and was taking more damage than Eleonora's. I can do this all day, while you can barely stand, Eleonora gloated. She doubled her fists together and swung, breaking into Uni's lighter armor. Game point, insects, she shouted as she put both arms overhead to deal a crushing blow. Suddenly, heavily dense muscular arms pried their way through Uni's armor, grabbing him and flying away to safety. Eleonora's arms descended, crushing the hollow armor into the floor in a vicious shockwave of power. I'm unstoppable. Why won't you children just give up? She gloated from her giant mechanical frame. Lena held Uni's head, as she and Ivily looked over their son. Lena plugged her headpiece directly into a slot on Uni's headpiece. Uni's eyes opened. Mom? Dad? He asked in disbelief. I feel like I was in a bad dream, some kind of war. You were, son. Your mind was being controlled by some sort of device, Ivily responded. Those upgrades, Uni shouted. There was an AI assist that I downloaded. I guess I was hacked. It was me. My name is Ida. I was uploaded by choice at 2 years old in order to help my family. I needed your body and I apologize. I can no longer control your mind, so I will accept whatever you decide to do with me. Uni looked around at the devastation in silence. 20 seconds went by. Then he responded, I'll upload you to my infosphere via our comm link. Thank you, she replied, as she was uploaded and removed from Uni's device. Suddenly, Uni's eye system alerted them. Warning, impending impact. Uni's orbitals flew in and took the impact, resulting in a huge green shockwave and a major blast. Get behind me. I'll absorb the impact, Ivily stated. Nanomachines use radiation as an energy source, Ivily ordered. Ivily's body absorbed much of the blast, turning his eyes and hair bright green and tripling his body size. I can't hold much more radiation. I have to release it. Ivily dug his hands and feet into the ground, extending his wings to their capacity. Then he clapped them together with all his might, releasing a shockwave of his own and blowing the blast away, along with all surrounding debris, and shrinking his body down to 1.5 times its original size. Eleonora was taken back. What is this? Her whole structure shook from his shockwave. Well, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again, she sang to herself, launching 3 consecutive missiles, turning on the dark matter gravitational cluster, and atomically dismantling each missile in midair. Then she flew along the massive structure, dismantling it piece by piece until it could no longer stand. All weapon areas were dismantled, leaving it crippled and unable to fire anything. Eleonora ejected herself out of the structure in a drivable seat and fired her handheld blaster at Lena's dark matter cluster. The cluster dissipated. She laughed, throwing her hands into the air. I still win. Lena stared intently at Eleonora from over 200 feet away. Ivily placed his hand on the shoulder of his son standing beside him. This is gonna get ugly, son, he warned him, as Lena leapt towards Eleonora in an instant, slapping her off of her mobile seat as she bounced on the dirt and grabbed. Eleonora groaned semi-consciously as Lena walked away. Let's go home, Lena said to her family. Ivily powered up the warp gate through his connection with the Citadel, and they were ready to be off. Ivily turned towards his son. I gotta admit, I can't hold on to this size anymore. I was just trying to look tough for you, Uni, he said, as he shrunk down to his normal size. As long as you can keep up, Pops, Uni mockingly replied to his father, as he thickened his exomuscular fibers and took off into the air. Ivily and Lena took off behind him. Suddenly, a loud bursting noise of gunfire went off, followed by even more gunfire. Help, Uni! I can't keep him up, Lena beckoned. Uni flew over to his father and Lena, as she struggled to carry him in the air. Dad! Uni cried out. Ivily grimaced, holding on to Lena, as he said, I'm all right, son. They got me a few times, but my nanomachines can repair it. Just help me get to the portal. You got it, Dad, Uni responded, as he thickened his external muscle system and grabbed his father and mother, pulling them through the air. Lena looked over at Ivily and asked, Who does he remind you of? Ively grimaced as he opened one eye to see the muscularly enhanced arm and body of his son holding him up. He let out a slight laugh and smiled at Lena. Off they went into the portal. Eleonora took her hand off of her sniper rifle and struggled to get up off of the ground. Oh, that ugly bitch got away. She hit me right in the face. The face? Oh, I'm gonna go out there and take her man. You wait and see. Huh, she muttered and laughed to herself. Then the thought of it amused her even more as she began laughing uncontrollably. You are no different than father ever was. Eleonora turned around to see the 2,000 children behind her. A tyrant is a tyrant, mother, Ira sternly stated, held up by two of her brothers. Children, Eleonora was out of words and terrified at her powerless state. Listen to me. I've given you all the kingdoms. The other mothers are dead. We know, Tehran responded, and you'll never be king again. Wait, what? Eleonora asked in a panic. Are you going to kill me? The children hesitated and silently stared at Eleonora in her panicked state. Eleonora squeezed her eyes shut in a tantrum and screamed, Well, come on then. Kill me. I'm better off dead if I'm not king. I'll be less than nothing. Goodbye, mother, Ira said as she and her brothers walked away. You bitch. Eleonora dived for her gun, but Tehran stepped on it, preventing her from picking it up. Eleonora sat back on the ground and cried. She cried and shouted for what seemed like hours until the sky was dark. In the distance, Eleonora could see a figure entering the city. She ran towards it with all her might. It was Milano. Milano! Milano! Let's run away together, she pleaded, grabbing onto his clothes and dragging herself behind him in desperation. Milano stopped walking and looked over at her, clutching onto his robe. Good luck, Eleonora, he stated as he took off his robe and left it with her. She clutched up his robe and hugged it to her, crying and rocking herself back and forth. She seemed to cry harder the further he walked away. Milano shook his head and disappeared into the city. Back on planet E-203, Uni showed off his new tech. So how strong are you now compared to Ively? Decca asked. Uni smirked and said, Don't worry, Decca. I may not be as strong as him now, but he vowed to face me in 1 month, so I have time to make more preparations. Decca and Terra put their hands to their faces in frustration. Oh gosh. Uni grinned from ear to ear. Thank you for listening to Citadel Society, the manufactured organic. Please like and subscribe, as I will be reading my 4th and 5th book in the series, Citadel Society. Thank you.